So today we're going to catch up with Gabe Murphy. And Gabe was a student here at Marion High School, just like everyone else we've interviewed, but also I've interviewed his sisters today. So I think I've decided I'm going to release all three of these videos on the same day so that people can catch up with the whole family at once. Gabe, what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2013. So with I know Matt and Celeste were both on here, so I graduated with them.
Okay. Yes. All right. So 2013. So I'm so appreciative that you're willing to share with my students today. And I'd love to just start out with you talking a little bit about the time you spent at Marion High School.
Yes, ma'am. So when I was at Marion High School, I played basketball for all 4 years. I played baseball for 2 and football for 1. I was a part of FBLA, and I was also a part of Interact Club. What really drove my high school was I knew what I wanted to do when I got into high school, like what I want my career to be.
Uh-huh.
So I took classes and I did things to make my future easier. So I took, I think, 4 years of drafting, and by the end of school, I was like one of 3 people in the class, and it was very helpful in to transforming into my college career.
That's good. So so you are an architect, correct? Is that right? You're an
I
architect.
am I am not an architect yet. I have to finish grad school, but
You.
that's the goal, is to become an architect.
You're working towards that goal. So
Yes,
you knew coming into high school that's what you wanted to do.
yes, ma'am. And then I was either going to be an architect, and you've had both my sisters, and both of them are teachers, and so is my dad, and so is my mom. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe I just want to be a teacher. And I had Mr. Martin, and I loved history. And I was like, maybe I could just be a history teacher. So I actually minored in history
Oh, you
in
did?
Southern
Cool.
Illinois.
So you've got that background as well. And it's so this is great because we didn't plan this. Jordan mentioned how significant uh Miss Wilson in art was for her. And Miss Wilson is retiring this year. And you mentioned Mr. Martin. And I actually kind of got choked up because last interview with Jordan, because Mr. Martin and Miss Wilson, this is their last year. They're retiring as teachers this year, and they're not getting the traditional send-off that a retired teacher would get. So I think it's lovely that there are students, that were impacted by them, that, are still talking about the influence they had on their lives. So that's really cool.
Yep. Just to let them know they should just come back for another year. I'm sure they would be okay with that.
They need to have a do-over.
Yeah.
I don't know. They may have their minds set on other things for next fall.
I would imagine so.
So what got you set on this career path? Like, what exposed you to architecture, thinking that you wanted to do that at such a young age?
Okay, so when I was 10, I had a bone disease in my foot, and I spent the next year and a half, like every other day, driving up to St. Louis for procedures or blood work or
I
all this other
remember
stuff.
that. I remember that.
So I was exposed to, this is while Busch Stadium was starting to get built, the new one. All these other structures were getting built, and so every time I would drive into the city, I would see something. It would be one place further completed than I was before then, and then I started thinking, number one, I love Legos. Like, I love putting things together, and that really, the idea of being able to assemble something and knowing how it is put together really was what drove me to become an architect.
That is really cool. So like you said, you took all your drafting classes in high school, and then so once you graduated in 2013, walk us through what your career path has looked like so far to where you are today.
So I went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, 100%. And then after that, graduated in 4 years, minored in history and horticulture, which is just a fancy word for landscape architecture. And I went from there. I think I took a week off, and I started working in Kansas City a week after I graduated. I spent 2 years in Kansas City working in engineering firms, actually, not architecture
Okay.
firms,
Okay.
but in the architecture department of the engineering firm.
Gotcha.
Um, and after I spent 2 years there, and you have to have so many hours to take the ARE, which is the exam to become an architect, of internship, of actually on the job working.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it comes out to about 2 years. So I spent 2 years there, and you have to go back to grad school. So I decided that was a perfect opportunity for me to come back to grad school. So now I'm at the University of Memphis in the graduate architecture program.
Got you. That's really cool. So you're going to enjoy a lot of good barbecue and music too, I'm hoping.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the big barbecue fest was canceled this year. So it's supposed to
Yeah.
be, I guess, last weekend, and it got pushed back to September. So I have to wait a few more months to
Gotcha.
go to that.
Gotcha. So what drew you to this university's master's program? Was there just something in particular? Do you like the area, or just like their school?
Well, I applied for UT Austin,
Okay.
University of Memphis, and Southern Illinois. And when I got everything, I looked at all the teachers, everything they've done. I knew a few people that went here after Southern Illinois, and they said they loved it. So that really drove my decision to come here. Also, I'm an hour and a half from my parents. So UT Austin was, I think, 12 hours away. So it was double the distance as Kansas City was.
Yeah.
And it doesn't snow here. So that's also a big plus, because I was sick and tired of the snow in Kansas City. And also it's a different, I get to learn from different teachers, because at SIU it would have been the same teachers
Yeah.
and the same thought processes, I guess. And here I get a whole new plethora of knowledge and teachers. So
That's exciting. Yeah, that's really neat. So when you were, so obviously you've got experience, you've interned in the field in the area. So what are some of the skills that are most important for someone that might be interested in doing something with architecture?
yeah, so the number one thing I think is communication. So being able to first communicate with your boss or your teachers or anybody, because in school they're the ones that are grading you, but in work they're still the ones that are grading you, and they have control over the future in your career. So it's good idea, number one, to talk to them, communicate with them, have a good relationship, and be able to express your ideas with them. I know that it starts way before you actually get into your job career, but that's number one. Probably, I guess, procrastination is also a big one. Know how to manage your time.
Mhm.
Uh, that was big, I think, in undergrad. That I didn't think I procrastinated very much, but now I know what I was doing in undergrad. I was procrastinating, but just have your stuff done on time. Set a schedule. Set a timetable of when you want to accomplish things and get it done by it. And really, that's pretty much it. Just work hard, show up on time. I know that's something that people don't think about, but if you're there one early, it shows you that you have the initiative, that you actually want to be there. You want to work. You want to keep learning.
Mhm.
And then probably the last thing is, after you're done with school, you don't stop learning. You can still continue to expand your knowledge. I know now there are TED Talks, YouTube videos, podcasts. So now I find when I come home, I'm watching TED Talks about architecture. I'm watching TED Talks, not even about architecture, just about design thinking, communication, because how you communicate with other people is really a key factor in this generation.
Those are great tips, and I think that's also a mark of that you found what you enjoy. Because if you're going home after you've been in class or after you've worked and you're still wanting more, you're still
Mm-hmm.
seeking out those opportunities to learn. about design and things like that, that's a that's a confirmation of, you know, you're headed in the right direction. Side note, have you watched the Netflix series, The Art of Design? Um, I show just a couple of episodes. One of them is about the guy, his last name or his name is Tinker, who worked with Michael Jordan on designing the Air Jordans. But then there's also one where they go behind, like with the engineers at Chrysler. There's another episode on architecture, and I haven't watched that one, but it's a really cool series, and it walks through like the design process and the creative thinking process. And my students love the one. I usually do it in marketing when we're talking about product design and product development. They love the one about Jordan, and it's really neat to see how they worked through the different phases of the different shoes and things. So anyway,
that sounds really cool. Yeah. I'll have to take a look at it.
It's pretty neat, and everybody's, you know, doing a little more Netflix right now than normal. So
exactly, I have time on my hands.
Yes. So so what advice then would you give? Well, actually, let me back up. So when you were working and interning, what was like a day in the life like? What was the normal kind of skills that you would use on a regular basis, and what'd your day look like?
Okay, yeah. So I would go to work. And it was really set your own time. So it's you have to work 40 hours a week. So if you want to work 9 hours and take a half day on Friday, you had the opportunity to. I just chose 8 hours, 8 to I guess 4 is what it comes down to. And I would come in. I would either meet with my boss and we talk about what goals he wanted me to accomplish for the day, what drawings I should have done, any other feedback from the drawings like I would present the day before. And then I would go sit on my computer. I would draw these up. I would communicate with the head architects there to make sure that this is actually what they're wanting, because I can think that it is, and then I spend hours on it, come back to them, and then it's not what they were thinking. It's really just communication. I know I say that a lot, but that's what it comes down to, is just communicating with your coworkers, with your boss, with everyone around you. And that is what I think is the hardest part, I think, in most people, is because most people are very individual thinkers. They think that they know how to do it and they don't ask questions. And that's when they get into trouble, is not asking enough questions at the beginning. And then it comes out and you spent 10 hours on something and it's completely wrong.
Yeah. Or like, I'm sure that there's a battle, like with clients, if they have an idea in their head, but they're not necessarily good at expressing it or giving the technical terms for what they want. And if they don't communicate too, you have to be a good listener too, I'm assuming, because if they're not communicating, or like you said, ask the right questions, you may not have a picture of what's inside their head because you're trying to figure that out. I'm sure that's a challenge at times.
Yeah, exactly. That you have to have a good understanding of what the client wants also, like you said. So a lot of times when the head architect meets the client, they take in like drawing paper and like notebooks, and if they have any questions, they sketch out what they're thinking to make sure that both parties are on the same page.
There you
They
go.
don't want that to happen.
That's good. Okay, that's good to know. So, like, what advice would you give to a student who's a junior and senior in high school right now, or maybe, if you could go back in time and talk to Gabe Murphy when he was a junior or senior at Marion High School, what advice do you think is important for them to know?
Yeah. So number one is be able to take criticism. I know that you don't really think about it, but the way you handle situations where you're criticized, especially I know in architecture, I would present a project and 6 people were criticizing what I did. So 6 professionals would come in there and basically try to make you feel bad about your project that you spent a semester on. And it's criticism is good if you take it in a positive way. So if you can build from the criticism, and with that being said, be able to talk. I know I said it, but be able to talk and present your ideas clearly. And whether that be to your friends or your classmates, even now, I know I don't know if I think we had to take communications in high school,
I
but
don't think it was prior, no.
oh, well then I know I took it in undergrad, but that was big. The way you have to give speeches and things, and the more you can talk and talk about your ideas, the easier it gets. I know some people hate public speaking; they hate getting up in front of people. But if you have the opportunity to just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, comes to find out you might actually like it and you might actually be good at it. And
So all these projects that when we make students present, we're just not torturing them, right? We're
no,
trying to help them.
exactly. And that was one of the things that I took from high school was I thought that the same way was, oh, I don't need to do this. Like I can actually publicly speak, like, and convey my ideas upon someone else. And then I get into undergrad and I was like, oh, I probably should have taken that more seriously. So take your presentation seriously. And like I said, talk to your teachers. So just like build relationships, even in high school. But then when you get into college, they'll actually like start. The teachers can like you in college. Like they can have favorites in college, and they will have favorites in college.
They can be open about it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes. So talk to your teachers. Actually, have good conversations with them. Learn from them. Learn about them. And then, because as I said, they're grading you then, and then you can do the same thing with your boss, and then the boss is going to grade you in the future. So it's just a process of learning and communicating with your peers and the people above you, supervisors, I guess. And the last thing I would think would be to get involved. I know I was in FBLA and I was in the Interact Club, but I don't actually think like I was in the club, but I don't actually think I went to anything, which is a mistake on my part. But once I got into actual undergrad, I was in clubs and things in undergrad, and I got involved in that, and I was very upset I didn't do it before college because you learn more about yourself, you make new friends, you actually have a better time. So even if get involved after college also. So go volunteer, do things outside of just your normal bubble. You might find something you actually very much enjoy and want to pursue.
And I will say, depending upon what events you choose in FBLA, there are lots of opportunities to practice the public speaking where you have to stand in front of 3 judges who are going to, be critical, constructive criticism, but ask questions and pick apart your ideas. So there are lots of opportunities like that. I know with FFA and with other organizations on campus too. So the sooner you can start taking advantage of those, the better. Absolutely. I've had students who would start as freshmen and say, I'm never doing a speaking event. And by their senior year, they're standing on stage at state, and they've placed in the top 10. And it was from a speaking event, but they just had to kind of build up their skill set and confidence. So very wise words, Gabe. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with my students today. I really appreciate it. And it's been good catching up with your whole family. I feel like I need to do a Zoom with your mom and dad now too.
They probably would have way better ideas than us.
There's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Yeah. I would want to do theirs together though, for sure. So
they probably won't be. They're not doing anything either. They're sitting at home.
I heard that your dad went back to work today, that the principals had to go back today. So
I have not talked to you today. So yeah, that is news.
That was for your sisters, so
they would know.
That's the word. So, well, you take care, and thank you again. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you.